You are here to have the imperfect human experience. This is why you're summoning both wanted and unwanted things all the time. So the universe always answers yes. And so when you are trying to catalog and order things up from the universe in a needy sort of a way, you are shifting the vibration to it is not here. And you're going to continue to experience it is not here. Better to be in complete appreciation of exactly where you are, and how your world is, and notice that many of the things that are just light preferences, sort of a wouldn't it be nice to experience that vibration, tend to flow right in.
David Strickel, welcome to Passion Harvest. I'm so looking forward to our conversation today and really excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love everything that you do. It sounds incredibly interesting and fascinating and wonderful. And you channel source consciousness, known as the stream. Do you mind sharing a little bit of that in your background for the audience?
Certainly. I will always preface that by saying I think that all beings channel source consciousness in their own way. So it's not something that's unique to me that you can only get sourced through me. But I have spent a lifetime going into that consciousness, and I have simplified it quite a bit, because what I get from the universal, I call it the energetic realm, from this universal consciousness, is that it really is really simple. It's not complex. We tend to make things very mystical and complex, and sometimes it's kind of sexy to do that. But what I get from, and I say them, but it's an energy, it's not really a them or a they. What I get from them is a very clear understanding of the universal process of creation, why polarity exists, which creates all of our problems in physical, and what the purpose of life is. And it's very logical and actually very simple.
You just delve deep into so many questions there. I have to ask you. Yes, we do overcomplicate things, and in our humanness, we can suffer so incredibly. Why the suffering, and how do we move through and alleviate the suffering?
And suffering is a result of judging something that we're experiencing or observing as should not be. I like to say should not be because there's no better way, in my vocabulary at least, to describe that portion of judgment. Because discernment is different than that. Discernment is, this is not my preference. I don't want to experience this. I don't want to be party to this. Source is saying there's absolutely nothing wrong with deciding that you don't want to participate in something. And we're making those decisions all the time throughout our entire lives. But when we place that, this shouldn't be happening, I shouldn't have experienced that, this person shouldn't be this way, that's when we're separating ourselves from source consciousness. Because source consciousness is the source of all creation. It is the source of everything wanted and unwanted, and therefore doesn't judge anything as wrong or should not be. It's really viewing our human experience from a much higher level, from that eternal consciousness level, where it is known that this human experience is a temporary experience that we move through. And a lot of the things that we suffer in are our own creation, as everything is. But the purpose of that creation is so that we can have the experience and we can solve the experience. We can heal from it. We know what it's like to have the experience. And once we have that experience and that knowledge, we expand our own consciousness, and we expand our consciousness eternally on what you might call a quantum level, which means our eternal being, our soul, excuse me, our soul is becoming a more sophisticated version of itself and having the human journey. And since we are all part of source, we're expressions of source consciousness, we are expanding source consciousness in the process of coming into physical and having these preferences, but also in the needing to solve things to move through the human journey. So that's the whole purpose of life, is to come and have this, come into this environment that we're very attached to, as far as our ego goes, because we're part of it. We are of earth. So we love the earthly things. We love food, and we love sunshine, and we love the ocean. And there's just so many things that we want to experience. But in order to move through the experience of these things, we're always going to be placing challenges in our paths. And we do that because of polarity, because our vibration can't just be high all the time. And that's a big departure in our message than what a lot of people who channel or talk about law of attraction tend to go into. Because I was very, very frustrated with a lot of law of attraction teachings. It was sort of like, how do I get all the material stuff that I want all the time? And the answers seem to be sometimes, well, just get happy and you'll get everything that you want and everything will be perfect. Yeah, and I think we all understand that thoughts create things, but a lot of times we don't want to claim ownership of the bad stuff. How would I create, poverty or childhood illness or abuse or these horrific things that are certainly not our preference? How do we create that? And a lot of times people on the surface will hear law of attraction and say, well, I would have never attracted XYZ, or why was this person suffering? How would they have attracted that? Well, our vibration is not static, and we all know that. From day to day, our moods shift, our emotions shift, and sometimes without any external reason, they just do. That's because our environment is polarized. Even scientists say that. And the energy field that is created is taking our vibration on this sort of up and down journey. And our up days, we're happier, we're more optimistic, things just go well for us naturally. And then our lower vibrational days are those days that we wake up on the wrong side of the bed and nothing seems to go right. And we get frustrated and we sort of double down on the judgment of that frustration. And then it just intensifies. And that can become a lifestyle. If you're really judging a lot of elements of the human journey as should not be, you're really separating your consciousness from source, and you're going to have a lower vibrational result, meaning you're going to have more problems.
So it's more accepting what is. If one is not, okay, so it happens to all of us, as you said, if we're experiencing a reality that is not our preference, how do we move through it and change it?
The number one way to do that is to detune the judgment of it. And that's a big part of the Taya practice, because on the surface, to say, okay, I'm not going to judge anything anymore. And you hear the people say that, right? Oh, I don't judge anything. And then they turn right around and start talking about things that they're judging, which we all do that. We don't want to judge things, but we're always in a way judging things with preference. That's the purpose of our ego. And I'll back up a little bit here and say that in our teachings, we talk about duality in all things physical. The only thing that doesn't have duality is source. Source is just source, pure positive, creative, expansive energy. That's all source is, nothing but. Everything else is polarized. All other physical creation is polarized because the physical aspect of it creates a density that actually is creating this polarity that we experience as we move through life. So in this environment of what you might call higher physical density, we are taken on this up and down emotional journey. Well, we have a higher self version of ourselves, which is our ego. Our source consciousness, or our soul, or higher self, whatever you want to call it. And then we have the lower vibrational register, which is our ego, our humanity. And the ego, humanity part of us is not a bad thing. It's not something that we want to totally get rid of. You're not going to do that as long as you're physical. It's actually there for a reason, and it's there to create this preference. The ego wants to experience wealth and pleasure and all of these things. Source isn't necessarily coming in and saying there's an opinion there. The ego wants that, but the ego also wants to not suffer and wants to judge the suffering as should not be. And we've also, across humanity, developed this matrix of beliefs that, certain things are wrong. Again, it's that should not be label that we place. And I don't believe the other beings in our world place that label. This is why an animal can give birth and the offspring could be consumed as food by another animal, and the mother might want to be protected, but the mother's more accepting of that outcome and sort of moves on with her life. We see that in nature, where a human being would be horrified by such things and really take that maybe for the rest of their lives in a suffering state. I understand that. I certainly understand that, because the preference would be that if you give birth, you want your child to be happy and healthy and thrive, and you want your child to outlive you and all of those things. But all of those things are human created beliefs. So what we do in our teachings is we really separate those things out, and we don't say that it's wrong to think this way. There's no rules in Taya. There's no worship. It's nothing like religion or anything like that. We just simply acknowledge that, okay, I'm suffering right now because I'm judging this as should not be. What happens if I choose to practice not doing that? And I say practice because we've all been programmed throughout a lifetime to do it. You're not just going to snap your fingers in most cases and detune judgment across the board. We're just not going to do that. It's a lifetime's work. But when you start detuning fear and judgment, those two kind of go hand in hand, as a way of life, your life starts to really change. Not only do you have fewer problems because you're not intensifying your problems by, really focusing on them and judging them, you are receiving more of the things that you want in life, fewer of the things that you don't want. And then when unwanted things cross your path, you experience those unwanted things very differently, very, very differently. And suddenly life's challenges become gifts. And some of these challenges at the onset, those of us that are deeper into the practice, you recognize that even at the onset. And the story that I like to share is in 2022, my home burned down. We purchased a new home. We spent the better part of a year remodeling it. As soon as the remodeling was finished, it caught fire and burned. And at the onset of that, I didn't judge it as this is awful, terrible. Why me? Oh my gosh, we spent all this time. I literally sat watching the house be destroyed by the fire department to put the fire out so the whole house wasn't destroyed. And my thought was, okay, this is what we're doing now. And this has been a 2-year journey. We're about to move back in right now as we speak. And, I haven't, there's elements of it that I've judged, but as soon as I catch myself in that should not be space, I stop that. And that really alleviates all suffering. Okay, this is what we're doing. This is what I'm experiencing. What can I appreciate in this moment? And then I build on that appreciation, and that takes my vibe back up. And when the vibe is higher, the problem that is presenting itself that I'm judging gets solved very efficiently.
It is, I mean, it is so simple and it makes perfect sense, but it is hard sometimes in our humanness when we have things we want and we have expectations of how our life should be or how others should be. It can be a challenge, but it makes perfect, simple sense.
Yeah, that's why I created a mindset practice for that reason, because I knew that I was a channel very early on, even though I didn't know what it was called. I understood law of attraction when I was 14. I remember describing it to my brother in 1982, way before most of the books were written on that. And I didn't know what it was. Again, I thought I invented it at one point. I thought I've got this cool thing that when I believe something, it actually comes true. And I remember my brother thinking I was insane, and he probably still thinks I'm insane. But I've lived that way throughout my lifetime, and I have manifested in every area that we want to manifest: miraculous healing from chronic back pain that was debilitating for decades, true love through trials and tribulations of failed relationships, wealth, all of the things that I've wanted to manifest, I have manifested. That doesn't mean my life is perfect. I still gained a ton of weight during the pandemic. I'm still bald. I still have problems that I deal with. I actually don't mind being bald, but I get called out on that all the time. If law of attraction were real, you wouldn't be bald. I think that's funny, actually. So the whole law of attraction, I don't even like to use that terminology. When you get deeper into my work, you don't hear me say that much. I'll usually say that when I'm speaking to new people that I'm meeting,
Yeah, people
because it's such a
get it. Yes, it's
yeah, it's a
popular.
buzzword that people understand, but it really is conscious creation. And I call it the universal process of creation, which is you're creating positive things that you want and negative things that you don't want all the time. And the negative things that you don't want give you this platform to really expand your consciousness. It's wonderful to have, the luxuries of life and have those experiences and know what it's like. But it's also wonderful to have the challenges of life and know what those are like. And I've got a lot of challenges, just like most people do, that I can look back on now and say, wow, I really appreciate my mother didn't want me as a child. That was one of my big things. My mother, my father left when I was 6. My mother announced she never wanted to be a mother. She fought for custody and then didn't want us. And, even told me to commit suicide at one point when I was a teenager, and then cut me off when I was in my early 20s. I told her I was gay. She never spoke to me again for the rest of her life, over 20 years. So I've had that experience. Well, I've detuned the judgment of that, and I appreciate my mother now. I look at her and say, gosh, if I weren't born to her, would I even be doing this? Would I have had the life journey that I had if I hadn't had that, major disruption of, hey, my mother's not the mother that society tells me she's supposed to be. She's not this, unconditional, loving mom. She never hugged me. I don't know that she ever told me I love you. She never did any of those things. I was left to my own devices. And now I think, gosh, it was so wonderful that I was left to my own devices to raise myself essentially from the age of 6, maybe even prior to that a little bit. I don't, from what I can remember. that was a gift for me because I'm not judging her as being a bad mother, and I'm not judging my life as a child or my childhood as something that was wrong. It's just what was. And how amazing is it to be able to really look at all of the human experience that way? And it's a
It
practice. You're
is
right. It
it is an
takes practice
amazing
to do that.
practice. So how, whether wanted or unwanted, how do we create our reality?
Well, that we create our reality really primarily through our belief system. Most people's lives are a reflection of their beliefs. I believe that I am wealthy and successful and smart. And you talk to these people that are having that experience, and their core belief is that. And sometimes that was fostered in childhood, and sometimes it wasn't. I found both, scenarios. I believe I'm a really healthy person, and so therefore I am. Or I'm terrified of illness and disease, and I have a lot of healthy habits, but I'm still getting sick. I've met a lot of people like that as well. People that, some of the healthiest people I knew in my 20s and 30s, I noticed were dying of cancer. And I really was curious about that. And it wasn't until I read a biography about Steve Jobs about 10 years ago that it really clicked, because he was very health conscious. And this man died of cancer, I believe, at 54. But I read between the lines of the things that he talked about in his behaviors. He wasn't healthy because he enjoyed being healthy. He was healthy because he was terrified of death. And he manifested an early death. So it's interesting to me to really look into belief systems. And I've spent a lot of time studying people's belief systems. And now I've spent the last 6+ years coaching people on their belief systems. Where did these beliefs come from? What beliefs are no longer serving you? The people that really get involved in our work really have already come to understand the law of attraction. They've accepted responsibility or ownership, at least, for everything that they've created. And now they want to really get into, how do I make the rest of my life different than what I've experienced so far? And a lot of it is going back to early childhood and going back to the past, and looking at the foundation of your belief system, and do a lot of what I call detuning your life's transgressors, because your early childhood transgressors, and I know you've heard this and probably said this yourself, anybody that studies this does, your early childhood transgressors are sort of the foundation of your belief system. And until you work on that stuff, until you detune it, it's always there. It doesn't just go away because you say, oh, I'm an adult now, it doesn't matter anymore. That was a long time ago. That wounded early child and those shocking things that we learn early on are shocking to us until we detune them. And the only way to detune anything is through appreciation. And when I say appreciation, I don't mean celebration. I mean deep understanding. So deep that you no longer can judge. Because when you understand, like if there's somebody that is a transgressor for you, and all you do is judge them and hate on them, and oh my gosh, they ruined my life, they're a horrible person, they're a monster, how can they be this way? You've sort of made them a one-dimensional being. Well, none of us are that. So what we do is we find points of appreciation to start the momentum going in that positive direction, to allow more source to come into the scenario. And when source comes in, suddenly you're viewing it, and we all have the ability to do this. We're viewing through source because we are that. And now you can appreciate anyone and anything. And it takes work and it takes practice. But when you do, you detune that transgressor. They're no longer that monster or that abuser or that person that took advantage of you or whatever they were, or it could be a circumstance or an event as well. Now it's no longer the same energy that it once was. It's now something that is positive in your life. And it really changes everything when you do that, because those early childhood transgressors have all of these branches that we create. Being bullied or having a low opinion of ourselves will attract the bully early on in school. And then that bullying can just become an abusive way of life for a whole lifetime until we detune it.
Thank you, David. Wonderful. What's your advice for people? I mean, I often get this question. I don't know what my negative subconscious beliefs are that are holding me back. What's your advice for those to dive deep to really understand what beliefs are holding them back?
I would say gathering the discipline, if you don't have it already, to meditate and journal. The answers to everything already exist within you. That deep soul searching in silence, spending some time in quiet contemplation, writing some things down. There's a lot of power to pen to paper. I'm a big tech guy. I've tried digital. There's still, and my handwriting is terrible. I'm dyslexic, so I can barely read my own handwriting. There's still great power in pen to paper journaling. There's just something, you've heard of automatic writing, I'm sure. You're channeling your own version of source when your vibration is really high, and you're getting this great clarity that flows and writing it down. I will tell you, though, that I also talk about it, because meditation can be really hard for people. Don't try to, if you're not meditating already, don't beat yourself up about getting a right posture and clearing your mind for a set amount of time. We have such busy minds. We're so overstimulated in our current day society. Learning to meditate, again, is a lifetime's work. The next best thing to meditation is what I call low thought activities. I notice to this day, if I go take a hot shower, source is all present. The best ideas are coming because I just enjoy a hot shower. It's meditative for me. When I used to drive long distances in my former career, and when I was out on an open stretch of road and it was beautiful scenery, I would get into this meditative state. I would be paying attention, low thought activity. I'm still paying attention to what I'm doing for safety, or in the shower or ironing or something like that. But it's taken my thought process down low enough to a singular focus that I'm really allowing all of that source consciousness that's always there waiting to come to us. I allow that to flow in. That's where these great ideas and just wonderful thoughts all flow from. And we all have that wellspring of information. I wanted to establish 4 pillars for this practice so that Taya never becomes something more than what it was intended to be. So there's never going to be any rules. No one's ever going to tell you what something's right or wrong or how to live your life, because I'm not getting that from source consciousness at all. There's no wrong way to live according to source. Now, according to our ego or our human desires, of course, there are more desirable ways to live. I would rather live in a mansion on the ocean than under a bridge somewhere, certainly. But that's preference. That's ego stuff. Source is saying the person living under the bridge, shooting themselves up with heroin, is having an expansive experience just like the billionaires of the world are. And when we're all finished with this lifetime, we all look back upon it in great appreciation of whatever experience that we have. Now, you can still have your preference, of course, for a certain type of life, more comfort and joy and things like that. But bringing more of that source consciousness back into the human experience, which is really our natural way of being, that is really the way to really detune the matrix. And again, we don't just detune the matrix because we decide to do that one day. It's a practice. And I noticed that my religious upbringing was not a negative thing overall. I was raised Methodist. I don't know if you're familiar with Methodism. I don't know how popular that is. I know it's in Europe, but I don't know how popular it is outside the United States. But it's kind of a light religion. It's not a hellfire damnation. And so my early childhood religious experience was pretty good. And the fellowship and the community and the belief structure, I have come to understand that we need structure to operate. Our belief system is our human operating system, just like a computer has an operating system. Your computer won't operate without it. Our physical being will not operate without a belief system. Even people that say they don't have a belief system, that's their belief system, right? Everyone has a belief system. So we have this system that we operate on. And how do you fine tune your belief system so that you're operating your life in harmony with universal law, and you're detuning the matrix, which is the human created law? And I say detune because we're not going to eradicate that. We're not going to just not participate in humanity anymore. It's just not possible to not participate. I mean, I guess if you want to go live alone in a forest somewhere and be completely cut off from the world, I don't think we have to do that, though. So the 4 pillars of Taya were created so that we know these 4 things are all that Taya is or ever will be. So there's no rules or worship. I'm not, anything, a deity. The stream is not looking to be worshipped or obeyed. They've said that from the very beginning. Why would the source of all creation even need that? So the 4 pillars are appreciation, source, polarity, and intention. So appreciation is important enough because we are taught not to appreciate multiple things. And everything that we're taught in our society not to appreciate separates us from source consciousness. And actually, if you notice, the things that we really don't appreciate, the things that we really judge as should not be, intensify. So if there's something going on in your life or in humanity that you think is wrong and bad and evil and shouldn't be, well, consciousness creates, right? So our consciousness is co-creating exactly what we don't want in our judgment of it. So if we're saying that a certain political leader shouldn't exist or shouldn't be. Timely topic, right? We are empowering that very person. And I do believe that these people that rise to great power and stay in power in the bewilderment of many know these universal laws and understand that the more polarizing I am, the more I make sure that everyone either loves me or hates me, I'm going to be empowered. And we have seen very recent results of that type of energy being put out there. Love me, hate me, I'm going to be brought into power because of all of that energy. The way that you detune that is to find points of appreciation for that person in this example. Instead of saying, I hate that person, they're wrong, they're evil, they shouldn't be, they're going to destroy the world, you are the one that's giving that power. So you take that power back by saying, I'm going to view through the eyes of source that all of this is just an experience. We're all eternal beings. We're all going to end this human experience. And there's nothing that's happening here in physical that could possibly end our essence. Nothing can end us. Somebody could walk in here right now in my human life very easily. Human life is delicate, but that's not, this is just a physical vehicle. You know, the essence of me, the energy that is empowering me is eternal as it is for all beings. So once you really believe that, there's nothing to fear anymore. So if I'm not fearing someone, why give them all that power by hating them? So that appreciation piece is the first pillar, and it's very important in the practice because we practice active appreciation of everything. And I say practice because there's certainly things that I don't readily appreciate. I'm building a house. I don't always appreciate my contractor from a day-to-day basis. I go down my spiral. I get on my podcast and talk about it immediately when I do, because I don't want to present myself as someone that's perfect, because that's not even the purpose of life, being perfect. That's, you know, that's just not authentic. The next one is source. Again, meditation, low thought activities, allowing more of that source consciousness to step forward automatically. It's like this seesaw. You know, rarely are we balanced. Generally, humanity is operating a little more ego and less source. Source is present, but the ego is overshadowing it. So when we're operating in more ego, we're having more fear, we're having more judgment, we're having more doubts, we limit ourselves, and we know that most of humanity is running on more ego than source. And we've created this matrix where, you know, humanity through religion and government and tradition and things like that is telling you this is how you're supposed to be, and if you're not this, you're wrong. Notice that that's true universally, not universally, globally. So we see that in every culture now that we're coming together and able to communicate the way that we can with modern technology, that every culture has this set of rules. The rules aren't necessarily bad. They created structure, but a lot of the rules come with these encumbrances that, again, have a lot of judgment and separate us from source. That's what I call the matrix. So what we start doing when we start meditating and appreciating and allowing more source is that source comes up, ego goes down. We don't diminish the ego completely, but we detune it. It becomes less of a factor in our lives. And when you have less ego, you're not comparing yourself to others as much. You're not judging your weight gain, your aging, you know, your activities. You're not judging your mistakes as much. You're not judging other people as much. And again, when I say judgment, it's the should not be piece that we're eliminating or detuning at least. So that's the source piece of it. Polarity is understanding that we are polarized beings, that we are moving in this up and down journey vibrationally all the time. Certainly, some of us are moving more dramatically than others, but we're all moving through this sort of up and down landscape vibrationally where we have highs and we have lows. And the low flow period is built into the practice. It's expected that we're going to experience low vibration. It's expected that we're going to have full blown spinouts on topics. We're going to fall off the wagon of something healthy that we've been doing maybe for years. We're going to go through a bout of, you know, depression. Maybe something's going to go on that isn't our preference, but we're going to learn to experience it differently because we're not going to continue it by judging it. I have found that I will go down my spiral vibrationally. I will have, you know, a low vibrational moment. Behaviors, thoughts, you know, are all going to match that. But I move through that very efficiently now because I understand polarity. Also, I understand that when I go down vibrationally and I create something unwanted, as soon as I go back up, what we tend to do is when we're feeling a little better after we have that low period, we want to forget all about everything we were experiencing when we're down there. We want to pretend like it never happened because we fear going there again. Well, now that we understand polarity, we're higher in vibration. We don't have to fear going down, A, and B, when we're back up in that source consciousness, that higher vibrational register, we now have the source of all creation flowing, which means the solving and healing power for anything and everything is available to us. That's how we heal these old wounds. That's how we heal trauma. This is how we solve problems, by going up first and then trying to solve it. And a lot of times it just solves itself. We don't have to think about it. So that's the third pillar. The fourth is intention. We are here to experience the earth environment. Humanity has now created all of this technology, all of these comforts. This is our creation. We're creating technology in our own image now with artificial intelligence. We can utilize all of these things and enjoy them and partake in them, including social media. So what intention do you have for your life? What do you want to experience while you're here? Something that I did see on your description of your podcast was about a soul path. And something that I've come to understand is that a lot of times we want to believe that source has a specific path laid out for us, or that there is an Akashic record where this has already happened and we're going to experience it again and again. And I understand that, but I've gotten something a little different in my channeling, that the whole point of the physical existence is new experiences and solving problems in a new way and expanding consciousness in the newness of it. And that there's other teachers that use the term co-creation, that the ego and source are sort of working in harmony to create the problems and then allow the solutions to flow. And in these solutions, we're creating new things for ourselves. And ultimately, we're creating new thoughts and ultimately new things for all of humanity and even universally. That's how source expands. That's how the universe expands. So that predetermined piece, I understand how someone who has gone deep into their inner being will see it as predetermined, but I got a very clear picture of what non-physical energy is all about and how it is eternal, which means when we create something new, it now exists eternally forward and backward. So that's why it seems like something was predetermined or always is or always was, but it's still new creation. And the best way I can describe that is just a being becoming a more sophisticated version of itself. That's what we're doing on this journey. And we do that through the human experience and through infinite physical experiences. So those are the four pillars of Taya.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Where is the best place for people to connect or reach out to you?
The streamofdavid.com is the website. We also have a podcast of the same name. And of course, we have the book, The Taya Practice. I always flash my book, The Taya Practice book. And it's a big, thick book. The whole practice is in here. This isn't some, read this and take my course. Yes, we have a boot camp. We have a course. I created the book, though, so that you don't have to take the course. If you're not up for taking the course financially, time-wise, whatever, the entire practice is in here. And we spent 5 years writing this book. Really, we created the practice 6 years ago and gave it a name and pillars and all of that. I've been doing it my whole life, but putting it in the book, this is the first thing that we have that really gives you a study guide, because this is something that if you are really turned on by it, you'll want to do this for the rest of your life. And again, no rules, no worship. It's a mindset practice.
Well, a big congratulations on your book as well. And I will, for those that didn't get that, I will leave a description in the show notes. Now, we spoke before about you offered to do some channeling
Absolutely.
for the Passion Harvest audience. And I'm so excited to explore this.
Yeah, as much as I like talking about all this stuff from my human perspective, it seems like everyone wants to hear from the stream rather than me. So
I'd love to hear from the stream.
all right. So what we do, the way that we bring this in, and really when I channel, it's sort of like I have taught myself, that's a whole other story that I won't get into today, but I have taught myself to allow my human self, my ego, to step aside and allow that source consciousness to flow through me and to speak it using my vocabulary and intellect. So we are limited to that. But they have never failed to answer a question. I say that and you'll probably ask a question that they'll fail to answer.
No.
But it's an interesting experience. And the way that we bring them in is I invite you and the audience to sort of meditate alongside, if you're able, if you're not driving right now listening to this. We quiet our mind. We set an intention to have the stream arrive and really receive what we're looking for, wherever you are, whoever you are, whenever you're listening, in their message. And when you set that intention, that really summons that energy. And then you will know they are here. They say we are here. And then you sort of take over and ask anything that you want from there.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I don't have a list of questions ready, but I'll just okay, good.
Oh, they'll come. If you set that intention, they will come to you.
Perfect. I hope I can do it for the audience or those that are listening
And
or
I'm going to take a bit of
watching.
water before I do this.
Yes.
We are here.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us on Passion Harvest today.
Always
Can
good
I?
to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful. Can I begin with some questions?
You may.
How can we connect more with our intuition, our guidance and source?
We flow through all creation. We are always present. As David has stated earlier, your egos and your well-developed human ego, the collective consciousness that he often refers to as the matrix, overshadows. And the overshadowing is a natural occurrence. You intended to have your source consciousness somewhat overshadowed in your journey, but you are all aware that there are times that great new ideas and solutions just pop into your minds. Notice what's going on for you vibrationally, emotionally, even the activities that you're partaking in these moments when these wonderful new ideas arrive, and do more of that. Notice that generally it's a time that you're not feeling frustrated, that you're appreciating something, that you are perhaps out in nature or doing something that you really enjoy, and you're in a somewhat relaxed state. You're not trying too hard to do anything. You're not overthinking, and as you may say. And these wonderful ideas and these solutions and these things just arrive. That consciousness is always present within you. It is not something that ever leaves you. Again, your human consciousness, that other side of you, the well-developed human consciousness, is what's overshadowing that. And so the more things that you can do as a practice on a daily basis to sort of relax that human consciousness, all of the thinking of this should not be happening, that should not be a reality, I should not be experiencing this, I should not have experienced that, this being should not be participating in humanity the way that they are. Anything that you're labeling as this should not exist is separating you from our consciousness. And you've been taught to do that across humanity. You've been taught to judge this way, and it does separate you from our consciousness. It brings your vibration down to a level that makes you a bit more controllable and has created a lot of structure in your world. So we are not guiding you to judge any of that as something that should not be, or wrong, or evil, or anything of that nature. We are not even guiding you to judge the ones who understand and utilize these tools and utilize other human beings in using these tools the way that they do. Just understand them on a deeper level so that you no longer need to fear nor judge them. They are just playing a game with universal law. They are using the tools that are available to all of you. You do not have to use them in the same way if you do not choose to. You do not need to manipulate anyone else. You do not need to instill fear in anyone to get what you want. In fact, believing and understanding that you are all powerful creators, that your consciousness, your minds, your eternal mind in conjunction with your ego-driven human mind are your greatest creative tools while you're in physical. So anything that you want to experience or create is within your grasp as long as you authentically and consistently believe it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So you mentioned talking about what we wanted, our desired reality. What if you could give the audience and maybe me some tips of what is your advice? What is the practice? What are the tools that we need to utilize to create our desired reality?
Prioritizing more time in quiet contemplation than humans typically do at this time, setting your devices aside a little bit. You don't have to shun them altogether, but spending a little more time in your best version of quiet contemplation is the best tool that you have. And understanding that, knowing where you are vibrationally, understanding that when you're up and you're in higher vibration, you're going to feel better, your emotions are going to reflect that vibration. That is your best creative time. We guide you not to overwork at creation, however. We're guiding you not to find yourselves in a higher vibrational state and believe that there's some catalog of things that you need to start ordering up while you're up there. Because very quickly, in creating all of these things, you will activate what we often refer to as the vibration of need, which is actually lowering your vibration. Believing that you need something, that you need a material object or more money or better health or more youthful appearance or anything to be joyous, is separating you from our consciousness, because you in fact don't need those things. There's nothing wrong with preferring those things and wanting to experience any and all of human creation. We are not judging that whatsoever. But there's a difference between having a preference and needing. The needing piece is always going to be answered by yes from the universe. Understand that we are the universe and we are not a judgmental entity. So we are not judging your desires and we are not judging your vibration. So if you are vibrating in illness, you're going to manifest illness. If you are vibrating poverty, you're going to manifest poverty. We are not going to look upon you and say that you're a worthy, good person and you don't deserve this, so we're not going to send it to you. You are here to have the imperfect human experience. This is why you're summoning both wanted and unwanted things all the time. So the universe always answers yes. And so when you are trying to catalog and order things up from the universe in a needy sort of a way, you are shifting the vibration to it is not here. And you're going to continue to experience it is not here. Better to be in complete appreciation of exactly where you are, how you are, and how your world is. And notice that many of the things that are just light preferences, sort of a wouldn't it be nice to experience that vibration, tend to flow right in. And you all have things that you manifest that many desire, that you manifest with ease. You all have some things. You're all designed this way. And then you have other things that don't come as easily. Again, because you chose to come to an environment that is polarized, where you're going to have desires and you're going to manifest some of those desires, and you're going to be more challenged to manifest others, while you're also manifesting challenges. All of these things expand your being, they expand your consciousness. As David has stated, they make you a more sophisticated version of yourself eternally. This is why you're here, to have the human journey and have the trials and tribulations of that journey and the joys and the pleasures of it as well. The mixed bag is really where it's at for all of you.
Thank you. For those of the audience that are experiencing grief or the loss of a loved one, what is your advice?
We will not necessarily guide you out of your grief experience, because again, that is a manifested experience that you have created for yourself. And the as painful as it may seem while you're in it, you will move through it. Polarity will certainly take your vibration down, and external events such as the loss of a loved one will take your vibration down, especially in the judgment of it. Again, this should not be happening. I should not be losing this loved one. I should not be experiencing this. That's going to create more suffering for you than the acceptance journey. But there's no wrong journey. If you choose to label the should not be and prolong the suffering, understand that it's your own creation, but also understand that we are not judging you as wrong for doing that. It's simply the experience that you're having. Now, if you are wanting relief from the suffering, and we understand that most of you do at some point, that is completely up to you. The relief from the suffering is always going to be in the removing the should not be, the acceptance and understanding that yes, your human matrix has created this notion that a lifetime is supposed to be a set number of years and experienced in a certain way, but that's just a human belief. The fetus that never makes it out of the womb is still eternal consciousness coming and having an experience and expanding in the having of that experience. As limited as it may seem to you, it is everything in that journey to that being. So there's no right or wrong way. And the more you understand your source being, which is available to you, as we have stated, it never forsakes you, it's always there. The more you move into that consciousness, the more you understand that the human journey is not supposed to be a certain amount of time. There's no linear time in the energetic realm. The concept and the experience of linear time is an illusion that you're experiencing when you're in physical. So understanding that source perspective more, and thus detuning your ego, the judgment function of your ego especially, is going to alleviate a lot of suffering for you. And understanding that anytime that you're suffering, you can always find the root cause that you are labeling something as this shouldn't be. And when you stop labeling the shouldn't be part, the suffering subsides.
Thank you. Um, this is, I mean, okay, I'll just go on to it, but completely sidetrack question. Are we experiencing parallel lives? And what I mean by that, are there multiple versions of Louisa?
Understand that consciousness is eternal, and every notion of who you believe you are exists. You place a lot of stock in physical, in what you can tangibly touch and feel and see while you're physically manifested, and not so much in the energetic or the consciousness piece. But all of the physical creation that you are experiencing while you are human was consciousness first. You were a thought before you came to be, and every version of your life that you have ever contemplated exists. It exists as consciousness. Consciousness is really if you think of it, if you flip the way that you think about everything, consciousness is all creation, and the physical expression is just that. It's the physical expression that you're experiencing of the consciousness. So therefore, any imaginable version of yourself that you have ever contemplated in any moment of your existence exists.
Thank you. Just two or three more questions. And um, do we, this is two questions. Do we choose to incarnate on Earth, and is there an endpoint?
There is, you're eternal being, so there is no endpoint in physical expression, because when you are in your eternal state, you are all knowing, you are all seeing, you are that which you call source, you are that which we are. And many of you, when you are judging the human experience as something that is difficult, or something that is to be ended and avoided at all costs, and believing that the eternal state of being where you want for nothing is the place to be, that is a very physical human judgment idea. Your eternal self is not thinking that at all. Your eternal self is eager to endlessly incarnate or manifest in physical experiences, because that's where the expansion comes. And it is a bit, there are no human words to truly describe something that is not even really a desire, because it just is. Expansion of consciousness, expansion of what you call source, and expansion of the universe are all the same thing. And that just is. It's not even a desire. So when you're in non-physical, you are not desiring a physical experience to expand your consciousness as much as it's just an automatic process. But to put it in human terms where you can understand it, we would say that when you are in physical, you may believe that the non-physical state is the place to be, because you believe that is all seeing, all knowing, wanting for nothing, having everything. And it is. But we're here to tell you that when you're in that state, you want nothing more than to come back and have the suffering journey of the physical experience. The desire journey, yes, but the suffering journey is really where the magic happens for all of you. And humans tend to have this notion that the ones that come and they're born into relative ease or great privilege are somehow blessed. They have done some good deeds in other lifetimes, and now they get to experience a good lifetime. That is actually completely opposite of reality in the energetic realm. And in the energetic realm, it's important to understand that it really operates in reverse of what you may call the matrix. The two operate completely in reverse. When you are in the energetic realm as an eternal strand of consciousness, you want greater and greater, or always graduating degrees of difficulty. So the human being, in this case, we were speaking to human beings, so we will use this as an example. The human being that is born into illness, possibly even terminal illness at a very young age, or great poverty, or genocide, or something of that nature, is a strand of consciousness that is coming for that type of experience. So that choice is made vibrationally. I want to come and be that. I want to come and be totally disconnected from humanity, so I'm going to be neurodivergent. I want to come and be somehow really limited. So I'm going to be oppressed in some way, maybe significantly. I want to come and experience the challenge of being born into an unprepared mother who may give me up for adoption or possibly even abort me. I want to come and have that experience because that challenging experience, I'm going to be made more sophisticated in the having of the experience, period. And certainly in the moving through that journey in physical, moving through it and into a different type of reality in physical is significant new creation. And notice that the stories that you all celebrate the most are triumph through tragedy or triumph through adversity. Why is this? Why do you all love that so much? Your egos appreciate it, but your eternal consciousness really appreciates it because your eternal being understands that's the entire purpose of physical being, not to come and have an easy life. As much as you may be envious of those that you witness that you believe are having an easy life, notice that very often those that have the matrix version of an easy life often place other obstacles in their paths as they move through the experience. The one having the perfect experience suddenly gets a cancer diagnosis and the whole world is turned upside down, or they lose their employment or lose all of their money, or suddenly their country's at war or something of this nature, and completely twists and turns that life experience on a dime. Your lives can change and even end on a dime, as you all know. That on a dime experience is the result of the soul saying, come this way, come through more adversity, come through more challenge, because your human ego is not being stimulated enough toward new creation. So you need to create something for yourself that's going to stimulate you in the way that your soul is wanting to be stimulated. Because that stimulation in the human experience, this is why you're limited to really your human awareness, your ego awareness. Now, when you quiet your minds and you do the things that we guide you to, if you choose to do so, you are allowing more of the energetic realm in because it is your natural state of being. You notice the animals of your world do live in more harmony of the mixture of the ego driven desires, but also in the joy in just being without judgment. This is how humanity came to be and certainly progressed to a certain state. And then you became these mutations in your environment with your heightened intelligence and started creating beyond the other beings of your planet. And when you did that, you started creating this matrix of rules and judgment, and this shouldn't be, and this should be, and this is what you're supposed to be, and this is what a family is supposed to look like, and this is what a male of the species is supposed to be, and this is what a female of the species is supposed to be. And what's happening now across humanity is you're all really wising up to this because of your ability to communicate globally, because of your technology that you've created. You're really coming to see this very clearly, how controlled you've been. And what you're all seeking to do now is exit that matrix and not be so controlled. And that's why you see younger generations that are coming and they are saying, I'm going to be neurodivergent. I'm not going to fall into that matrix. I'm not going to be able to, or I'm not going to be a gender. I'm going to be non-binary, while the older ones of your world are really bewildered by this. What does that mean to not have a gender? That doesn't make sense to them. So what you're seeing is that evolution of consciousness in physical. And what you're also seeing is the matrix understanding, because it's an energy that's been created by the collective of humanity, coming on stronger, saying, here's more things to fear. Here are more things to draw you back in fear and judgment, because that lowers your vibration, separates you from our consciousness, and again, takes your creative power away. You're back in the matrix. You're back as a cog in the machine when you're fearing and judging.
Thank you very much. My final question. What what does humanity look like for the next 100 years?
Humanity looks like wherever humanity takes itself. And we are asked this question via David and others continually, wanting us to describe what the future is going to be. But understand, the future is your creation. You stated earlier, there are these infinite versions of you. There are infinite possibilities for what's next in every micro moment for humanity. So where you are heading is you are creating technology in your own image. Some of your religions will state that God created man and it's in his own image. where that came from was the concept that there were beings in your world that created you, that you are technology. And now you are wising up and coming to understand that you can create technology that is very much like you. You've been doing this for quite some time in creating computers and robotics, and now these are becoming wiser. And notice now that your artificial intelligence is more thinking more efficiently than you do. So what you're doing is you're creating technology that is going to ultimately be the replacement for that which you are. The timeline for that, however, is not something that we would guide you to concern yourselves with, because you're a long way off from that happening. Nor should you even worry about that at all, because that's a natural progression of any environment. And to go back to the earlier question about your in and out sort of reincarnation in a physical environment, you think of it as sort of this linear thing where you're in a lifetime and you're out of a lifetime and you're in another, and is there an end? We've already stated there's no end to this. There's absolutely no ceiling. There is no end to this creation. But you do move through multiple environments infinitely. So you come and you experience the earth environment as one type of simplified being, and you graduate to more complex beings, all the way up to the most complex beings, and you have multiple experiences of being the more complex type of being, i.e. human, in your environment. You do ultimately graduate from that to something else that's even more sophisticated. Humanity simultaneously is doing the same thing for itself. Humanity is creating technology that will ultimately mean the end of humanity, but the consciousness that is humanity will move on to other things. So there's nothing to fear in creating the destruction of your own environment or your own species even. We are not guiding you to actively do that, but just understand that that's a natural progression, that everything in physical, whether it's an environment or a species or a singular being, has a beginning, middle, and an end. That's a natural progression in any physical environment eternally, that it's not meant to be eternal. The only thing that is eternal is the energetic realm, and it is. So here you are in physical having this experience, and you've created the earth environment, and those beings that are of the earth environment are moving through these infinite experiences in the earth environment. And we say infinite because they're still moving, they're still growing. The earth environment has not ceased to be. And even when the earth environment does cease to be, it will simply reform into something else to continue that expansion of consciousness experience.
Is there anything else on a final note you would like to share with the Passion Harvest audience that I haven't asked you?
Our final note is the same. We share quite a bit of information in few words and a little bit of time, and it can be mind-boggling if you're hearing it for the first time. We guide you to perhaps listen back a few times and over time to listen back, because the more you listen and the more you are exposing yourselves to these words shared by David or others, it's your choice, the more it will all start to click into place for you, and you will start to sort of rewire your own human consciousness, whereas you have a deeper understanding of eternal law, the universal process of creation, what source is, and what your purpose is in physical while you're in this experience. So we guide you to do that if you so choose.
Well, thank you very, very much, the stream, and I appreciate your time.
With much love, that is what we have. Wow.
Thank, thank you, David Strickel.
I'm sorry. I'm always a little bewildered when I first come back out of
Of
that.
course, of course. Take your time.
A lot of emotion. You summoned a lot of information. I don't remember everything word for word when I channel like that, but I'm present for it.
Yes.
And it's sort of like I'm in the background, and they're out on stage, and I'm back there thinking, God, these are really good questions. This is a lot of good stuff. I hope
Well, I
we're
can't wait
serving
to
the
re-listen
audience.
to it.
I
I've
hope we're serving the audience and that everything they
Me
shared makes
too.
sense,
I'm
because
sure.
it's sort of like, the whole universe is blah, is just out there.
Mm.
Um, but the more you listen, the more it starts to kind of click in and mesh and make sense. Early on, it's a little different than what a lot of people hear, but it will. I have never found it to contradict what other teachers are teaching. If they're teaching fear and judgment, that's a whole different thing. But I'm talking
Yes.
about spiritual teachers who are talking about universal law, conscious creation, soul journey, all of that stuff. It doesn't contradict any of that. It brings some more clarity to it sometimes, but I've never had anything come through that says any of that is wrong or incorrect or inaccurate. It's always like this is a deeper understanding of it, perhaps.
Well, I appreciate your time too, David. So honored you were on Passion Harvest today, and I can't wait to re-listen to this interview. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and thank you to all of you who listened all the way to the end and accepted the stream in, because it's it's a lot to digest sometimes, and I appreciate
Yes.
anybody that sticks with it and really wants to hear about it.
Well, thank you so much. Bye-bye.